Have you ever wondered what happened to House Harkonnen after Paul Atreides won? For over 10,000 years, the Harkonnen stood among one of the greatest houses in the Imperium. They controlled unimaginable wealth, commanded vast armies, and manipulated emperors. To most of the galaxy, House Harkonnen seemed to be too powerful to ever truly end. Yet, after the Battle of Arrakeen, something almost unpredictable happened. Within a single day, the Baron is dead, Rabban is dead, Feyd Rautha is dead, their armies are shattered, their political power collapsed, and their homeworld was taken away. The great house that have dominated the imperial politics just vanished, disappeared. Or did it? Because while the name Harkonnen vanished from the ranks of the great houses, their bloodline continued to shape the future of humanity. The greatest monster would return after his death and just haunt the legacy of House Atreides for more than 1500 years. So, how did the oldest and most powerful, most feared dynasties in the universe came to such an abrupt and devastating end? And did House Harkonnen truly die? Let's trace the complete fall and enduring legacy of House Harkonnen. Welcome back to Sand and Shadows. Baron Vladimir Harkonnen believed that he had won. His greatest rival, Duke Leto Atreides, had been murdered. House Atreides appeared to be destroyed. The Emperor himself had secretly helped the Harkonnens to eliminate their competition by lending Sardaukar troops disguised as Harkonnen soldiers. Everything has gone as per the plan, according to the plan. The Baron believed the only problem remained was Paul Atreides. Paul wasn't dead. He escaped into the deep desert with Lady Jessica and done something no Harkonnen strategist ever imagined possible. He united the Fremen. The Harkonnens had always viewed the Fremen as these primitive desert tribe, useful only for laboratories, labors, or just nuisance. Baron's brutal rule, in fact, Rabban's brutal rule only strengthened this misconception. Instead of trying to understand the people of Arrakis, the Harkonnens ruled through fear, and that exact fear eventually became the weapon that destroyed them. Over next 2 years, Paul Atreides transformed the scattered Fremen tribes into perhaps one of the most effective fighting forces in the known universe. Every spice convoy was attacked, every patrol ambushed, even every House Harkonnen victory became more expensive than the last. The Baron still believed that he could regain the power. Instead, he was walking into annihilation. The first major Harkonnen casualty wasn't the Baron, it was Glossu Rabban, better known as the Beast. Rabban ruled Arrakis through absolute terror. Executions, mass punishments, crushing taxes, entire villages destroyed just to maintain order. The Baron had intentionally chosen Rabban. His long-term strategy was brilliantly cynical. Rabban would make the population suffer so much, then when Feyd Rautha eventually takes over, people would see Feyd as a savior. It was the political theater, manufactured tyranny followed by manufactured mercy, but Paul destroyed that plan even before it could even succeed. During the first Battle of Arrakeen, Rabban's forces collapsed under the combined assault of thousands of Fremen warriors riding giant sandworms through the Emperor's supposedly impenetrable defenses. In Frank Herbert's novel, Rabban dies during the chaos of the battle at the hands of a Fremen. His death is quick, almost insignificant. For a man who had spent years terrorizing this entire planet, Herbert gave him remarkably little attention. The lack of ceremony feels intentional. Rabban believed that fear made him powerful. Instead, history barely remembers him after he was dead. The Dune Part 2 changes this moment significantly. Instead of anonymous Fremen killing Rabban, Gurney Halleck confronts him personally. The duel becomes deeply personal. Years earlier, Gurney had enslaved and brutally abused by House Harkonnen. He was the slave of House Harkonnen. Killing Rabban wasn't simply revenge, it was liberation. While different from the novel, the film gave us emotional closure to one of the longest running personal conflicts in the story. Either way, Rabban never survived the day. The beast is gone. If Rabban represented brute force, Baron Vladimir Harkonnen represented calculated evil. He manipulated emperor, controlled noble houses. Everything had been arranged decades in advance. He believed that he controlled history itself. History arrived in a form of a little girl. One of the greatest twists in the Dune occurs after the Emperor's defeat. Alia Atreides, Paul's little sister, had already become something terrifying. Because Jessica underwent this water of life ritual while she was pregnant, Alia was born fully conscious. She carried the memories of ancestors, countless ancestors before birth. To the Bene Gesserit, it made her the abomination. To the Baron, she appeared to be a harmless child. That mistake cost him everything. As the Baron attempts to seize her, Alia calmly reveals the truth. She is his granddaughter. Jessica, whom the Baron never knew was his daughter through the Bene Gesserit breeding program, had given birth to Paul and Paul's sister. Before Baron could fully comprehend this revelation, Alia strikes him with a poisoned comjabad. One tiny needle, one moment of arrogance, the most feared nobleman in the Imperium dies instantly. Ironically, the man who spent his entire life manipulating bloodlines is ultimately killed by his own blood. The movie adaptation changes this dramatically. Instead of Alia delivering justice, Paul personally killed the Baron after defeating the Emperor's forces. The emotional symbolism just shifts towards Paul's revenge for Leto Atreides, but Herbert's version carries a much darker irony. The Baron isn't defeated by military genius, he was destroyed by his own blood. With Rabban dead, the Baron dead, the leadership passes to Feyd Rautha. Technically, he becomes the new Baron, but only for a matter of minutes. Throughout the novel, Feyd is carefully cultivated as this perfect Harkonnen heir, charismatic, intelligent, gifted fighter, and far more dangerous than Rabban. Even the Bene Gesserit considered him genetically valuable enough to potentially father the Kwisatz Haderach. During the final confrontation, Emperor offers Feyd as his companion. If Feyd wins, Paul loses everything. If Paul wins, House Harkonnen ends forever. The duel becomes more than a personal fight. It's the death struggle between two dynasties. Unlike Jamis, Feyd doesn't he isn't driven by honor. He cheats. He uses hidden poisons, his secret weapons, everything House Harkonnen always relied upon. Paul survives anyway. After this exhausting duel, Feyd is killed with one blade thrust. The direct male Harkonnen succession ends. 3 leaders, 3 deaths, 1 battle, 1 afternoon erased centuries of political dominance. But did House Harkonnen truly die? This is the point many viewers misunderstand. Paul never launches a campaign to hunt down every single Harkonnen relatives. There is no galaxy-wide genocide, no systematic termination. He doesn't need one. A great house exists because it possesses armies, wealth, territory, political alliances, charm, influence, and recognition by the Landsrat. The Harkonnens lost each and every one of these things. Without the Baron, without Feyd, without Arrakis, without their planet, without the Emperor's support, House Harkonnen simply ceased to function as a political institution. Minor relatives likely survived, distant cousins undoubtedly existed, lesser branches continued to live within the Giedi Prime, but none possessed the authority, the military authority, the strength, the legitimacy to restore the house. During Muad'Dib's jihad, the surviving remnant faded into irrelevance. For all practical purposes, House Harkonnen died alongside its leadership. What happened to Giedi Prime? Their homeland was changed forever. Giedi Prime had become one of the bleakest planets in the Imperium. Centuries of industrial exploitation had poisoned the landscape. Factories dominated the horizon. The skies were polluted. Nature had largely disappeared. For generations, this environmental devastation reflected the Harkonnen philosophy itself. Exploit everything, preserve nothing. After Paul's victory, administration of the planet was entrusted to Gurney Halleck. This is the poetic justice. The former slave became the emperor of the former master's world. Under his administration, Giedi Prime underwent radical transformations. The planet was renamed Gamu. Heavy industries were dismantled, polluting infrastructures disappeared. Massive ecological restoration projects began. Forests slowly returned. The green landscape replaced the toxic wastelands. Cities were renamed. Even the identity of the planet was changed. By the time of Heretic of Dune and the Chapter House, more than 15 centuries later, Gamu bears little resemblance to the old Giedi Prime. Some Harkonnen structures still stand, including this ancient keep, but the world itself became something entirely different. Ironically, the same planet later became one of the Bene Gesserit's most important centers of operation. It also serves as a location where several Duncan Idaho Golas are trained. The Harkonnen capital survives, but the Harkonnen civilization, it does not. But there is a catch. This bloodline refuses to die. Here is where Herbert delivers one final twist. Although House Harkonnen disappeared politically, its genes become immortal. Jessica is secretly Baron's biological daughter, that means Paul Atreides, Alia, Leto II, Ganima, and every future Atreides emperor all carry the Harkonnen blood. The family that spent generations trying to destroy House Atreides ultimately merged with it forever. Even the Bene Gesserit continue using Harkonnen genetics for more than 1500 years. To them, noble families are not simply political organizations, they are breeding stock. Useful traits are preserved regardless of morality. In the expanded novels by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson, another branch survives as well. Before Feyd's death, Lady Margot Fendring bore a daughter to Feyd, and that was Marie. The continuation of the bloodline exists only in the expanded universe, not Frank Herbert's original novels, but its illustrations that House Harkonnen's genetics were never completely erased. The house died, the blood endured. Now, perhaps the strangest part of House Harkonnen's legacy occurred long after Vladimir Harkonnen's physical death. Because Alia was a preborn, every ancestral memories existed within her head, including Baron's. At first, she resisted him, but over time, isolation, grief, and political pressure weakens her. The Baron's personality gradually takes control. He whispers, manipulates, and corrupts. At the end, Alia became exactly what Paul feared, a tyrant. Not because the Baron literally resurrected, but his ancestral consciousness overwhelms her. His greatest victory comes after his own death. Only when Alia realizes she has lost control of herself, she chose self-harm rather than allowing Baron the permanent control. Even Leto II carried the Baron's memories. The difference is that Leto's mind was powerful enough to dominate every ancestral voice. The Baron remained imprisoned within the God Emperor's consciousness until eventually fading into the vast sea of other memories. Even in death, Vladimir Harkonnen refused to disappear quietly. In the end, House Harkonnen suffers one of the most complete political collapse in the science fiction. Its leaders die, its armies vanished, its titles disappeared, its homeland is transformed, its government ceased to exist. Its name fades from the imperial politics forever. There is no glorious final battle, no restoration moments, no triumphant return centuries later. Frank Herbert deliberately avoids that familiar fantasy trope. Instead, he shows something much more realistic. The empires rarely end with every citizen dying. They end when no one fears them anymore. Yet Herbert also reminds us that the idea of bloodlines survive longer than governments. The cruelty of House Harkonnen echoes through Alia. Their genetics shape the Atreides dynasty. Their former world become one of the most important planets in history. Even their greatest villains continue haunting the humanity through other memory. So, did House Harkonnen truly disappear? Politically, absolutely. As a great house, it was erased from the history the moment Feyd Rautha was defeated. But as a legacy, it became impossible to escape. Perhaps that is Frank Herbert's final irony. The Atreides won the war, but for thousands of years afterwards, they continue carrying the House Harkonnen within themselves. So if you like this video, do like, share, comment, subscribe, everything. I read every comment. And if you want to support the channel, you can join the membership. The button is down below. And I'll see you in the next one.